Hello my lovelies and welcome to the Spirit Tarot and Healing Arts YouTube channel. If you are new, welcome back. If you're a returning viewer, I'm Rin, and so I decided to clean off and reorganize my tarot shelf because I have one of the shelves that I store my decks on is tarot, and then the other shelf is oracle and other types of decks. And so since I was taking everything off of the shelf, I decided to do a deck collection video because I don't think I've done one since I have had this channel, and I was kind of curious exactly because I used to keep really close track of what tarot decks I had, but I haven't been doing that for a while. So I was like, I'm not even sure how many decks I have. So you can kind of see I've got most of them out of the frame, but I only have so much room to work with. I understand this is not the best angle for this, but it's what I can do with the space I have and the number of decks that I have. Now, for the most part, I'm just going to be showing you the box that the deck is in. I have a few that are in bags or pouches, and those I'll have to like carefully pull out a card to show you because many of them are no longer suitable for YouTube with their new stance on art and nudity. So for the most part, I'm going to show you boxes because the box covers are all suitable for YouTube, but the decks themselves not so much. But like I said, when I get to the ones that I don't have boxes for anymore, I'm going to have to pull out like a card or two and show you from those. I do recommend getting a cup of tea or a glass of water or what have you, because I do have 37, I believe, tarot decks here, if I counted right when I did a quick tally before I hit record. So there's quite a few decks here. I think it might be time for a thinning of the herd, but most of these decks I could not bear to part with. So we'll see what we see when we see it, as my family would say. So I don't really have like a place to start. I think where I'm going to start is I unintentionally got quite the number of Insight Editions decks. Y'all probably know, you may have your own experience, and hopefully you guys can hear me okay because I had to put the mic farther away from me than I usually do. But I did not set out to get this many Insight Edition decks, and most of you know that a lot of us are not happy with the Insight Edition decks because they didn't advertise them as PIP decks, but all but one of them are PIP decks. So there's that. And I do just want to mention that if you happen to hear background noises, my youngest does online schooling, and he is currently, if you will, in school while I'm recording this, so he is trying to quietly do his work in the background. But if you hear anything, it's just him doing his work in the background. So let's start off with the Insight Edition decks. Honestly, I have thought about culling my herd of decks with some of these, but other people are like, no, you're really into those fandoms. You would probably regret it if you let go of the decks, even though I tend to not use these in readings. So the first one we have is the Tarot del Toro. Let me see. There we go. I think that makes it kind of straight for you. So we've got the Tarot del Toro. This is based off of Guillermo del Toro's monsters and everything. The majors I love. They are gorgeous. Kind of see. Let me see, because I can't remember if there's any inappropriate, but there's the backs of the cards. So here's the pips. You can see they're very boring. Here's the backs of the cards. They're nice. Let me see if I can find one of the majors real quick. And of course, like, there's not going to be a major. Oh, well, here's a court card. So they are really nice. They're on the macabre side because it's Guillermo del Toro. It's a lot of monsters and things like that. I love the majors. I want to use this deck. I have used it for a couple of things. I sometimes do, and there's a video here on the channel that teaches you how to do it, but you can do a majors only grand tableau with the tarot. And so sometimes when I have used this deck in readings, it's been to do that grand tableau. In fact, this is the deck that I teach the grand tableau with. So if you want to see more of the cards from this deck, if you want to see the majors, go check out the how to do a grand tableau with the tarot video that I have on the channel. But that's the first one in the Insight Edition decks. And I haven't really thought this through super well, so I'm not sure where I'm putting decks when I'm done talking about them, because I kind of have a whole mess going on here right now. Okay, so I do have like everything off of my shelf all spread out all over the place. I just made a place behind me that I can put the decks when I'm done talking about them. All right, so the next Insight Edition deck that we have is the Supernatural Join the Hunt Tarot Deck and Guidebook. To be perfectly honest, I have tried because I love Supernatural, so I've tried many a time to get into this deck and use this deck. This is a deck that I have thought about rehoming numerous times, and this is really the one that everybody's like, if you do, you're going to regret it down the road because you're a Supernatural fan and you will. But I never read with this deck, and so I feel like, why do I have it? So I don't know, maybe someday I'll rehome it, or maybe someday I'll learn to actually do readings with it that I enjoy. The next Insight Editions deck is our Garbage Pail Kids deck. Now this is I actually enjoy this deck. This is an Insight Editions deck, obviously, but it is not a pip deck. It is the only Insight Editions deck that I have that is not a pip deck. It's fully illustrated in the Rider-Waite-Smith system, and I love this deck. In fact, I was just talking the other day with someone about the fact that, and I said I was only going to show the boxes, but here I am. There is a flip through of this deck on the channel, but I happen to know that this deck doesn't have any nudity in it, so I can just grab a couple cards and show them. But I was thinking about the Audacity deck is an Oracle deck, and I put a reading up on my Etsy shop that is just using the Audacity deck, and I didn't really expect it to get any traction, and it's turned out to be super popular. And I thought, if people are looking for readings with an attitude, maybe I will design a reading using just the Garbage Pail Kids tarot and put that up on my Etsy shop, because there might be, since the Audacity deck reading has been so well received, there might be a market or an audience for this too. So if that's something you'd be interested in, let me know your feelings on that. This is very nostalgic for me. Brings back some good memories and things. I love Garbage Pail Kids. I'm sorry, I'm having issues with my voice today, and part of it is because I cleaned off the tarot deck, and it was tarot deck shelf, and it was so dusty, so I'm kind of having a little tickle in my throat. But next up we have the Disney Villains tarot deck. Again, a pip deck, but I still love it anyway. And I do occasionally use this one in readings despite it being a pip deck. The thing is, I can read with pip decks, but I generally speaking don't like them for tarot. I mean, I read with playing cards, so it's not like it's a deal breaker or like I can't read with pips. It's just I prefer my tarot decks to be fully illustrated. And again, some of these that I know that I can just grab cards out of them and I won't get in trouble with YouTube, I will. And some of these decks I do have full flip throughs here on the channel, but some of them I just can't anymore. Some of them I used to have flip throughs of and had to take them down because of YouTube's new persnicketiness. In the same vein as the Disney Villains, we've got the Hocus Pocus tarot deck. Sorry, because I'm turning, as I take one away and put one down, I'm turning to get the other deck put down. There you go, you can see the word Hocus Pocus now. But I love this deck. Again, pip deck, which is kind of disappointing, but at least the pips are pretty and interesting in this deck, and there is a full walkthrough of this video on my channel. Now, we get to the last of my Insight Editions decks, and if you have seen my walkthrough, my flip through video on this deck, you know that I am very upset with this deck, and not because it is yet another pip deck, the Alice in Wonderland tarot deck. Yet another pip deck. Again, this time at least I knew it was a pip deck before I purchased it, so I was okay with that. I knew I was purchasing a pip deck this time, so I was okay with it. I would have liked to see them fully illustrate this, but they didn't. It's okay. It is what it is. The problem is the deck is pretty much unusable. And I talk about that in my walkthrough video. The deck came in such a condition that I've tried using it in personal readings. I would never use this for a client reading because I wouldn't trust it, because it basically, my husband has tried and tried and tried to work this deck, if you will, so that it will all warp in the same direction, because if I can at least get it to all warp in the same direction, then I could do readings with it. The problem is it warps in like 16 different directions, and so I can't shuffle the deck. But it is in my collection. This is not one that I would rehome because of the state of it. If I decide I'm not going to keep this deck, then I would probably, honestly, probably what may wind up happening down the road is this might actually wind up being used for craft projects, because I can't read with it. And again, you can go check out the video that I do on it, and I go through the whole thing of why it is a problem. Alright, so let's go to my food decks, I guess, next. The first one we've got here is the Food Fortunes Tarot. I have a flip through of this deck here on the channel, and I also have a video because this deck was actually made as a gag, as a novelty. It was never intended to be read as a tarot deck. So I have a video of what I do to make it an actual working deck and how I read this deck. So both of those videos are here on the channel. This deck I think is really going to get rehomed. I liked the idea of it. The art itself is really not up my alley. This is the little white book for it. And the problem is the suits are like types of pasta names, and I have a hard time remembering since I don't really use it. Ooh, wants to fly everywhere. Sorry, that was probably a little loud in your earbuds. But the art itself, we might have to move this box because it doesn't want to focus on it. Put it down here. Hello. There we go. Nope. Like, we don't want to focus on this tarot deck. Yeah, apparently even my camera doesn't like this deck. But you can see it like, I wanted it to be cute. I gotta be careful with that card. I wanted to like it, but I just don't, and I don't work with it enough to remember which pasta type is which suit. And so it's just, I couldn't do professional readings with it, and I really don't read with it. Personally, I've tried using it for some of the tarot games that I play. This deck is probably going to go adios. It's probably going to find a new home because I just can't get into the pasta tarot. It just isn't. If you look at the cards on the back of the box, I was like, oh, I could get into that even though it's not my usual art style. But some of them, a lot of the cards take this art style even more to an extreme, and I'm like, ugh, I can't. And this is why I usually look at a video of a flip through of an entire deck before I buy it. But I was in the store, someone talked me into getting this as an impulse purchase, and I was like, oh, I like those two cards, it's fine, I'll grab it, I'll go. And then I can't get into it. Sorry if you hear my chair, because now I'm getting to a point where I have to put the cards even farther away as I set them down. So let's go with these next. Like I said, this is no particular order. I love this deck. This is the Transient Light Tarot. I will grab a couple cards of this. I don't think I've done a flip through of this yet, and I really need to. This deck is 100% gender neutral. There are no gendered cards in it whatsoever. There's not even really people cards. Maybe we'll come across. There are court cards, yes, but they're done in a way that is completely, there you go. You've got like the Champion of Wands. You've got the Crown of Wands, the Keeper of Vessels. But you can see there's, oh, sorry, I'm holding it away from the thing. Again, this is a very weird camera angle I have to have this at. But you can see how there's no people, there's no gender in this deck. I really enjoy it. It reads absolutely wonderfully. So if you're looking for a gender neutral deck, a deck that is devoid of any gendered cards, then the Transient Light Tarot is one I definitely recommend. Alright, next up we have another favorite deck of mine. This is the Light Seers Tarot. This is the one, if you are learning tarot, but you're not feeling the Rider-Waite-Smith, because you all know that I am not a fan of the Rider-Waite-Smith. Even though I have a couple Rider-Waite-Smith decks, I'm not a fan. And let me see, because I think there are some cards in here. You can see the backs there. Oh yeah, we can't show that one. Okay, we can show some of these that I've just pulled out here and have in my hand, but I have to be careful. But to give you, they're very colorful. They are along the line of the traditional Rider-Waite, like the scene depicted is similar enough to the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. So for anybody who's new to tarot, they're wanting to learn tarot, they're looking for a beginner deck, they want something in the Rider-Waite-Smith system, but they don't want the Rider-Waite-Smith, this is a deck that I definitely recommend starting with. And I think this is a deck, I don't know if I left this one. I did a walkthrough of this one. I do not know if I left it up or I took it down when YouTube changed the rules. I know I still have one or two deck walkthroughs up of decks that are kind of pushing the line. And if I get to a point where I get, where I want to be on YouTube, I will eventually have to take them down, or else they will be held against me. But for now, I've kind of left them up. Alright, let's, well, this pile is kind of driving me crazy. I have 3 major onlys decks here. I've got the Critical Role deck. And I do believe, so if you're a D&D fan, if you watch Critical Role, this deck was created based off of characters in the first campaign. It is a really cute deck. It does have gilded edges. You kind of can't see it well on camera, but the edges are gilded. The back has some gilding. And then, like I said, it depicts characters from the first campaign. This pretty much is a collector's item to me. I have done some readings with it, but I've pretty much just put it away and kept it as a collector's item. You've got the Golden Visconti, which there's too many bits and bobs showing in this for me to even open this deck and show you. But it is a gilded version, majors only, of the Visconti Tarot. I use this, well, I used to use this a lot in past life readings, but actually I use this deck more now. This is a deck that I created. It is a majors only, and I use this for Manner of Death in past life readings, because what I did was the health associations with the majors cards, I turned those into Manners of Death, and that is what I use in my past life readings. I think I can get away with putting those over there while we talk. This is another deck I've done a flip through here on the channel of, the Midnight Magic, a tarot deck of mushrooms. Love, love, love. Again, another great deck if you're looking for something that is more gender neutral. Now, I do believe the titles on the cards are still like Page, Knight, Queen, King, but there's no one depicted on the cards. It's just mushrooms. So just if you are trying to do a gender neutral reading, you could use gender neutral terms when you get the court cards instead of the ones on the deck, but there's no depiction of gender on it. Another thing too is like when you have the Lovers, you know, that usually depicts a heterosexual couple. Since there's no couple depicted on this, then it's great for, in my opinion anyhow, for the most part, it's great for queer readings because there is no art to insinuate a certain type of couple. So something to consider if you do readings for people who are non-binary or who are queer in some way. Potentially a good deck. It depends on the person because, like I said, the court cards still have gendered terms on them, or gendered titles, but there's no depiction of gender in the deck. Alright, then we've got, again, I'm not a huge fan of the Rider-Waite-Smith, but I do have a full walkthrough of this on my channel. It is a round tarot deck, the Tarot Original 1909. This is one of the ones, since it's such a popular video, I have left it up for now, but eventually this video will have to come off the channel. So depending on when you're seeing this video that I'm making right now of the deck collection, make sure you go, if you're interested in this, make sure you go watch it as soon as you know about it, because eventually the flip through of this deck will be gone from the channel, because it's the Rider-Waite-Smith. It shows boobs, and YouTube is anti-boobs now. So, alrighty, let's see. We've got Playing Marseille. I have a flip through of this deck. Keep in mind, these are playing card sized cards, but there are all 78 cards of the majors in this deck. It is because it is a Marseille deck, it is a pip deck, so keep that in mind. Then I have the Jane Austen Tarot. This is a very interesting deck, let me tell you, because it is a 53 card tarot deck. And I have not done a video of this one yet. So the 53rd card is there is a Joker card that comes in the deck. And then it is done like a playing card deck. So there's 52 of these cards. The 52 playing cards that you would normally see. But hearts, if you're not familiar with my how to read playing cards as tarot cards method, I do have a video that teaches you how to do that. So if you're going to get this deck, you might want to check out that video of how to read tarot card or playing cards as tarot cards, because hearts equate to cups, and spades, swords, clubs to clubs, and diamonds to pentacles. But here's the point that I wanted to show you about why this. So this card right here, the Queen of Hearts, represents both the Queen of Cups and the High Priestess. It's very interesting to work with. And you'll see, so all the majors are in here, but they are on minor and court cards instead of actually having 22 majors. So there's a lot of cards that do double duty. Very, very interesting to use. I have used it for client readings. I don't use it all the time. One of the reasons is it's so flippin' big, like oversized, that in a way it's nice, but in a way that makes it a little hard to work with. Why are we not wanting to close correctly? There we go. Thank you. All right, then, where should we go next? All right, so let's go Tarot of the Divine. This is another one. I'm not going to open it because there are cards in this that YouTube would have a conniption fit over. And I don't want to get into that. So, Tarot of the Divine. This one takes folk tales from around the world and applies them to the different cards. It is absolutely gorgeous. It's an inexpensive deck too, but it reads like a dream. I've got the mass market version of the Crow Tarot. You guys know this is one of my all-time favorites. I do have a flip through here on the channel of this. Again, no people on the cards, but the court cards are given gendered names, so just be aware of that. Alright, then we've got the Good Tarot. I don't think I have a flip through of this on the channel, but this is a tarot deck that the purpose of it was to create a deck that did not have any of the quote-unquote scary or negative cards that you typically see in a tarot deck. Now, while I don't feel that any card in tarot is innately negative or bad or scary, I understand why some people feel that way. And so if you are someone who is interested in tarot, but it's the scary cards that is your block to actually getting a reading or learning to read tarot, this can be a great deck because it's a lot more gentle, and it's meant for people that kind of want to dip their toes into tarot but maybe aren't quite comfortable yet to tackle some of the more challenging energies that we see in tarot. So it's a good starting point if you are that kind of person, if you're doing readings for that kind of person. All right, so next let's do the Tarot de la Nuit. It is a gorgeous deck. I love Alexandra's artwork. However, it is, where's the little scarab? It is a little low scarabeo deck. And we know how I feel about low scarabeo and the fact that I just will not purchase from them anymore unless it is like the deck we're going to talk about next. And I'll get to that. But anyhow, Tarot de la Nuit, beautiful deck. It's meant to be very nighttime oriented, in the dark, things like that. Gorgeous, gorgeous artwork. Unfortunately, like so many low scarabeo decks, mine came damaged. Low scarabeo doesn't give a flying fig Newton. They have non-existent customer service. And almost every deck I have ever purchased that has been low scarabeo has come damaged, miscut, with extra or missing. Like there's been an issue with close to every single low scarabeo deck I have bought. A lot of other people have said that they have same or similar problems, but it seems like if it has this kind of box, it came from low scarabeo, and I am pretty much guaranteed there's going to be an issue with it. Now, the next deck that I'm going to grab here is also technically a low scarabeo deck. However, it's Llewellyn that prints it and publishes it here in the United States, so you can see on there that it is low scarabeo, but when I ordered it on Amazon, it listed it as a Llewellyn deck. And somebody told me one time that all of the U.S. low scarabeo decks are actually supposed to come from Llewellyn, but I know if they come in a box like this, they're going to be miscut, they're going to be damaged, there's going to be missing cards, all kinds of issues. If it comes like this, and this was not advertised as a Llewellyn deck or coming from Llewellyn or anything like that, and it was damaged. This one, I did not realize it was a low scarabeo deck. My ADHD is getting ahead of me, and I'm tripping over my own tongue. But the Heaven Knows Tarot, when I ordered it on Amazon, it was advertised as a Llewellyn deck. It wasn't until I got it and saw the box that I realized the little beetle was on it, and it was actually supposed to be a low scarabeo deck. Now, oh, that's right, I cannot open this one. Focus, please. I cannot open this one on YouTube because, there we go, because there is a lot of nudity, nips and that in this deck. So it has a very foggy, ethereal, fuzzy feel to it. So some people criticize this deck because it doesn't have nice crisp images. They are very dreamy, very foggy, very fuzzy. And it's not that they were printed incorrectly, like it's not a print issue. That is just the style of artwork for this particular deck. But I love this. It's a good all-around deck. I will warn you though, because this is I think the second deck I bought, that it is actually a Rider-Waite-Smith and Thoth mashup. So you will notice on the cards there are Thoth associations on the cards, and they use the so Thoth, instead of the page, uses the princess as the title on the court cards, and they do that as well. So it's, the images are done in the Rider-Waite-Smith sort of style. You'll recognize like the Eight of Pentacles in here looks like the Eight of Pentacles in a Rider-Waite-Smith deck, but the meanings in the book can vary a little bit because of the Thoth mashup, and you'll notice that there's symbols on the cards and that title change due to it being a Rider-Waite-Smith and Thoth mashup. Alright, I tried to clear a little room over here for me to put stuff. Next up, let's go with, I'm going to move these over here too, because otherwise I may forget that I've already done those. We've got the Mystical Manga or Mystical Manga Tarot. I hear people pronounce it both ways all the time. I do not have strong feelings one way or the other. This is a deck that I cannot show on here anymore. I used to have a flip through of it on the channel. This is one that I definitely had to take down because there was no getting away with this one now that they've changed their stance on things. There's just no getting away with it. So, mystical manga, I like this particularly for love readings, but because I use the Erotic Fantasies Tarot, because I do 18 plus spicy readings, and my other love readings tend to use like Lenormand or things, I don't find myself using this deck very often. I don't think I'm going to rehome it because I really do enjoy the deck, and I will sometimes grab it to do readings for myself with, but I don't use it in professional readings very much. Now, if somebody, like if I had a client that was like, hey, I know you have this deck, I want you to use this deck for my reading, then I absolutely would, but I don't find myself grabbing for it for professional readings really ever anymore. I used it for a while until I got the Erotic Fantasies Tarot, but now this is pretty much, oh, you know what? I'm in the mood for that deck, and I'll grab it and do a reading for myself. Alright, then we've got the Game of Thrones Tarot. Again, one that I cannot open. At least I don't think I can. I used to use this deck all the time. It used to be a real workhorse deck for me. I'm going to move these over because we've got a little more room now. It used to be a real workhorse deck for me. I did reback it because I hated the backs that were on it. And then you can see I've got a piece of Dragon's Blood Jasper in here with it. I am not a Game of Thrones fan. I do not read the books. I did not watch the show. But the artwork on it, it's very much in the Rider-Waite. Let me see if I can get something without getting myself in trouble. Okay, these are good. Very Rider-Waite Smith-esque. I just happen to like the art style, the imagery. Like, to me, I don't know who any of these people are. I don't care. It just works for me. It's got a texture to it, which some people don't like. Oh, you can kind of see it there. So some people don't like that texture. I don't have an issue with it. It is quite a thick deck because I did reback it, and I rebacked it with a thick backing, but it worked for me, kind of like a bronzer copper dragon scale sort of thing I got going on here. So I edged it too. I gave it like an antique edge, but love this deck, would never part with it. Haven't been using it for a hot minute, but I know at some point I will go back to using this again because it is a great all-around deck. Alright, now let's see. Let's get some of these out of the way, shall we? We've got here, I'll set that aside. The Cthulhu's Vault deck. Again, I can't remember. I don't use this very often. Usually what I use this for is playing tarot games with it. I don't really use it for reading because this deck is very polarizing for me. There are cards in this deck that I absolutely love. Love, love, love. Head over heels for. And then there are cards in this deck that I'm like, oh my gosh, no. Just no. So, honestly, I don't use this enough to remember if this is a YouTube safe deck or not. Because, like I said, I tend to play games with this and not read with this one. Then we've got the Ethereal Visions Illuminated Tarot deck. Again, can't show it because YouTube doesn't like it. But it is a gorgeous deck. You can kind of... Can I get that to focus? You can kind of... It doesn't really want to focus, but hopefully you can kind of get the idea of what the cards look like from the back of the deck. Gorgeous deck. It does have... oh, there you go. You can see the cards are gilded like that. And I know some people worry about that rubbing off. I use this deck a lot, and I have not noticed any undue wear or tear on the deck. It's holding up quite well in my personal opinion. But I love this deck. And normally this Art Nouveau style is not my thing. Not my cup of tea, but I love this deck. Alright, so let's see. What else do we got going on here? Let's move this here. So this is a cute deck that I got sort of on a whim, and I didn't figure that I would wind up using it. They did the box, sort of like a, how can I best show you this? There we go. Sort of like a recipe box. So it's super cute. The backs of the cards are kind of like the old gingham tablecloth. And then you've got this sort of 40s, 50s Americana style artwork on there. Sort of caricature, sort of collage. It is interesting. The suits are like, the pentacles are kind of like plates. The cups are obviously cups. You've got knives for the swords. And what are... Oh, what do we have? Swords. I haven't used this in a hot minute because this is part of why... Oh, the wands are wands, but they have like mops and that. And this one has a plunger. I haven't been using this deck. Like, I keep thinking about it, and I haven't been using it because it's been... bless you, sweetie. Sorry, my youngest is sneezing back there. I haven't been using it because it's been buried on my tarot shelf that I couldn't, like, easily get to it. It's part of why we're rearranging the tarot shelf today. Yeah, but I love that. And then one of the creators of that deck is also one of the creators who worked on this deck, the Zombie Tarot. This is another one, again, I was at the store and somebody encouraged me to pick it up. This is a very inexpensive deck. Honestly, I don't know how YouTube will feel about if I actually show that side of the box. But it's a very... Sorry, I had to cough. It's a very interesting deck. The same style of art, really, as the Housewives Tarot that I just showed you. Some people consider this deck disturbing because, there's decay and human body parts and things, chainsaws, all that. I probably shouldn't have showed that card on YouTube, but you'll have that. Yeah, it is. I love this deck, and the funny thing is, I always talk about this. This deck absolutely loves love readings. I mean, the love readings I have done with this deck are absolutely amazing. I bought this on a whim just to be a sort of like a collector's item. Didn't think I would use it for readings, but yeah, I absolutely do use the Zombie Tarot for readings. It is fantastic and an inexpensive deck. So we know the price of things lately. Yeah, we need some inexpensive decks, and that one is definitely one that is great. Okay, so I took a moment to take some of the decks that I have in bags out, partially because some of these not YouTube friendly anymore. This is the Mystic Fairy Tarot. There is a foreign version that is borderless, and I would love to have that, but this is the American version, and so I finally broke down and I trimmed mine. So you can see this is not the size that they come as. There's the backs. And then, let me look because I can't remember. I don't use this deck very often. This is more of a spring-summer deck for me personally. Not that it can't be used year-round. I don't know why, but I don't feel like this is a deck that I generally use for private readings. I'd like to start using it for more client readings. I just haven't really had a call to do so. It is a very nice deck. However, there is a separate guidebook that you can purchase. It comes with a little white book that explains card meanings, which is great. But then the whole thing is that each suit in this deck was supposed to give a story from ace through king. And so to get the story of how the story was supposed to progress through the cards, you had to buy this additional guidebook that came separately. And I did break down and do that, and then I was very disappointed because for me it wasn't cohesive stories. It really wasn't even, it just didn't work for me. Now, I'm not saying it won't work for you if you happen to own this deck and you want to try that guidebook. Go for it, but I really didn't feel like it gave me anything more than the little white book. Personally, in my opinion, allegedly don't come for me. Then we've got the Paulina Tarot here. This was inspired by Mardi Gras. I love this. This is a deck that I rebacked with like a French newspaper kind of motif. This is the Deviant Moon Tarot Borderless Edition. Love, love, love it, but absolutely can't show the deck on YouTube. Next up, this is my vintage Rider-Waite-Smith, my very first tarot deck. This is from the 70s, vintage. The only thing wrong with this deck, and I don't know if I can find it easily, is that years upon years ago we had a dog, and I don't know why, but the one night he felt the need, I don't know if he like accidentally knocked the deck onto the floor off of my coffee table, but he like chewed on the bag that it was in, and by doing that, there's like one or two cards that kind of have bite marks. They're not super noticeable. They wouldn't stop me from using the deck if I wanted to. I have retired this deck. I do not read with it anymore. Have not for many a year now. Yeah, I can't even find, it's so subtle I can't even find it. But this is the deck that I got from my parents. It was theirs that they read with at parties with their friends in the 70s, and I still have it. Like I said, I'm not a huge Rider-Waite-Smith fan. I like the circular one because it's circular, but I'm not a big fan of the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, so I don't read with this, but I do hold on to it because it is my first deck. It was given to me by my parents, and so I figure if nothing else, this will eventually get passed on to one of my kids as sort of our tarot legacy, if you will. And then one of my all-time favorite decks, this is Tarot of the Hidden Realms, and I just picked one of the cute cards from it that I can actually show here on YouTube. The theme here is the actual Celtic depictions of the Fae. The Morrigan features heavily in this deck. There's several cards that have the Morrigan, and in my 10 favorite death cards video, one of the death cards I showed is the death card, which is the Morrigan from this deck. Okay, so I paused for a moment to take these out of their pouches that they are stored in. We've got the Antique Anatomy Tarot, which I absolutely love. There's no bits or bobs in this one, so YouTube safe. There's a lot of sort of antique sort of anatomy, and then there's antique medical tools and that you'll find in this, and then they are combined with flowers. Love it. One of my all-time favorite decks. We've got the Shadowland Tarot, if my camera will cooperate and focus again. Maybe if I take my arm out of the picture, sometimes that helps. No, we don't want to focus today. Okay. Maybe if I do this. There we go. Okay, so now you can see the Shadowlands Tarot. Very cute. I really love this deck. It was designed with shadow work in mind. We've got the Chicoli Tarot, which is sort of a dark take on fairy tales. One of my favorite decks. I talked about in the flip through for this that I tend to only use this around Yule, or like Yule, January, like deep in winter. It can absolutely be used year round, but for some reason that's what it works for me. I'm so tired of seeing my elbow in the video. Don't mind my elbow, people. And then we've got the Russian Tarot of St. Petersburg, and if you've followed me for a while, you know how near and dear to my heart this deck is. This is copy number 2 of this deck for me. I almost never do client readings with it anymore. This usually is for personal readings. But this was, so I started with that Rider-Waite-Smith that I showed you, this vintage 70s Rider-Waite-Smith. And I could read with it, but I had a hard time. I just really didn't connect. I didn't gel with the Rider-Waite-Smith. And then in 2000, I got my hands on a copy of the Russian Tarot of St. Petersburg. And that is when tarot reading actually clicked for me. Tarot reading made sense. It all came together, and I really started to excel as a tarot reader. So this was the deck that really made it happen for me to become a tarot reader. Now I'm going to stop real quick because I realized that since I'm doing a deck collection video, I have my mini decks stored separately from my other decks. So I actually have 3 more decks. I'm going to grab them real quick and put these ones away. Okay, So, in grabbing my mini decks, I realized that I had referenced the Erotic Fantasy Tarot, but had not actually had it out because I actually have it stored. I have all my love decks that I use most often for love readings together in the same place, and forgot that it was not on my tarot shelf with the rest of my tarot decks. So, this is probably one of the few cards in this deck that I can show because she is completely covered. Um, but this is the Erotic Fantasies Tarot. Absolutely amazing for doing love and sex readings. Then we've got the Radiant Rider-Waite. It is the mini, obviously, in a tin, but I have made it even more mini. Okay, good. That's a card I can show. Because they came with these horrible, ugly white borders. And, yeah, actually, do I need to turn it this way? This video might be a problem. We're gonna keep it this way. I don't know which way I oriented stuff. Uh, so stuff may be right side up, upside down. I'm sorry if it is in this video. But this is with the border trimmed off, and then I edged it as well. And then the last one, oh, not the last one, we've got the Halloween Tarot. Again, this is another one that had a horrible white border on it, so I trimmed the border off, so this is even more mini than it is intended to be. Great for Halloween. And then there's the Everyday Witch, which even though I have trimmed these two minis down even further, this deck is smaller than those. And it is, I'm old, okay? People, like, I'm old. It comes with no little white book, which to me is an issue because if you don't know how to read tarot, well, then what are you going to do? And I think I held things mostly this way so you can see them in the videos. Anyhow, if you don't know the meanings, what are you supposed to do? I then, because I wasn't familiar with this deck and I was curious about how a couple of the cards were interpreted, what I wound up doing was I wound up buying, there's an app that goes with this deck. I wound up spending like $5 on the app, I think is what it was, just so that I could see how the creator intended some of the cards to be interpreted. But in the end, because the titles, like, I don't even... Yeah, like, even the camera's like, what are you wanting me to focus on? The titles are cursive and so small, and so my old eyes can't read them well. Like, I have to, like, have my reading glasses and pick them up to look at them when I do a reading with this deck because they're so tiny. I need the full-size version of this deck, and it's cute, and I like it. The problem is the full-size version of this deck is, like, it was like $12 for this, but the full-size version of the deck is like $30. And I'm sorry, but I don't feel like I would use this deck enough to make it worth spending the $30 for it. And so I just kind of don't use it. And the really sad part about that is that I have the Oracle deck that goes with this. And I like it too, and I would love to use these together and maybe do some readings on my channel or on my Etsy shop, specifically like with this deck and that Oracle deck. But I don't, because I don't know. I don't feel like I love this. Like, I like this deck, but I don't feel like I like it enough to spend another $30 on this deck. But it is beautiful, and it's a nice deck, and it does read well. It's just... the size of it is so, I mean, ooh, can't do that. You didn't see that, YouTube. But I mean, look at the size of this compared to a regular sized card, and then consider that this is a mini deck. I've trimmed this down, so it's already, it was a mini deck that I have made smaller, and that's how much smaller. Like, this is not a mini deck. This is a micro deck. Like, let's just be real about it. It is, in my opinion, allegedly, don't come for me, it is too small to be used practically. It just is. But doesn't mean I don't like the artwork and don't like the deck. as a matter of practicality, I don't really read with it. All right. So that has been everything. I don't know what I'm going to do because now that I've spent an hour recording this video, I realize some of it is upside down. And I don't know what I'm going to do about that. So if you've enjoyed this video, though, please give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you have any of these decks? How do you feel about them? If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. And until I see you in the next video, blessings to you wherever your journey finds you.